Hi guys, and welcome back to my channel. Today I'm going to be reviewing how I time track and several alternatives for time tracking your day. So to begin, the primary thing that I use for time tracking is my Hobonichi Techo Avec, which is the Hobonichi Techo half-year size. If you've been following along with Plan With Me May, you may remember that I have several planners in my current planner system. This is my personal bullet journal back here, the copper Leuchtturm, and then I keep the Hobonichi in with that Leuchtturm in this Chic Sparrow Traveler's Notebook cover. This leather is no longer available on their website, but every now and then they bring it back for pre-order or for a special edition. So if you're interested in getting your hands on this guy, I would sign up for their newsletter or follow them along on their blog, and every now and then they will post a sale of this discontinued leather. So the Hobonichi Techo has several different layouts, one of which is the weekly layout. So when I'm not using the Scribbles That Matter bullet planner, this is where I lay out my week just so that I get a general sense of where my openings are, especially in my workday, so that I can plug in tasks, especially tasks that require some focused effort. So at the beginning, that is what I do. But how I use my daily pages is actually for very specific time tracking. There are different ways of doing time tracking, and today I'm going to review how I generally do it, and I'm also going to review two different alternative methods of time tracking. And there's several other different methods, but this is the one that I use most regularly, and then the other two are the ones that I have explored or strategies that I've considered using in the future. So I'm going to go ahead and put in all of the things that I did during the day along with their respective time. So I took some notes today during the day. Usually I do this as it's happening. So I start off, this is a day that I woke up at 7 o'clock and I went to sleep at 11 o'clock, and it actually has all of the tasks that I did. So I want to go through how I would put in the tasks for my workday. I think that I put things in a little bit differently than I've seen other people do in other videos. So today is May 11th, and I haven't been time tracking mostly because I have had a particularly eventful few weeks. If you're following along across this month, you know that I was traveling at the very beginning of the month, so last week, and before that I had 2 other business trips. So I've been traveling a lot, and I'm getting just back into the rhythm of planning and planning consistently, and this is something that I had really focused on since January, and I do want to get back on the wagon. So first things first, I go ahead and write, I'm going to zoom you all in just a bit. This morning I woke up very, very early, and that was at 4 o'clock. So what I generally do is somewhere close to the date or the day of the week, I write the hour, and then after this kind of invisible line that the Hobonichi has, that's where I write the event. So around 4 o'clock I woke up, and I headed off to work shortly thereafter, like 15 minutes after. And there was like no traffic at 4 in the morning, so I made it to work at 4:30. All right. And then at about 5 o'clock, I did some testing, and that was over right about 8 o'clock. And at 8 o'clock, I got some breakfast. At about 8:30, I started working through my electronic to-do list. So I keep a full to-do list in my work bullet journal, and I just want to make sure that everything in my electronic to-do list is migrated over to my work bullet journal, because that is really the brainchild. It holds all of my to-dos in there. But I do have a to-do folder in my email account. So what I do is every time I get an email, I process that email. If it's something that I can do in 2 or 3 minutes or less, I do it immediately. If it's something that I need to save for later, I put it away in a reference file. And if it's something that's going to require some extended effort, so anything more than like 5 or 10 minutes, even that's kind of pushing it, I put it into a to-do box, and then from that to-do list, I put that item into my work bullet journal, and then I process it just like I would anything else, given its priority and its urgency. But because I hadn't been in the office for a little while, and this week I've really just been catching up on some projects, I went through my to-do folder in my email account, and I made sure that every to-do in there was also listed in my bullet journal. So at 8:30, I did my to-do file in my email, and I did processing. At 10 o'clock, I prepped for a meeting, and at 10:30, I had that meeting. That finished at 11:30. At 11:30, my husband came by for lunch, and I finished lunch about 12:30. At 12:30, I continued to process my to-do list until 1:30. At 1:30, I had a meeting. That meeting lasted until 2 o'clock. At 2 o'clock, I started working on one project. I have a large project that takes up a lot of my work hours, and because it's so large, it can supersede everything else if I just pay attention to it. So I've programmed my email to, whenever it receives an email that has a title that is related to this project, or if it's delivered from one of the assistants on this project, it goes directly into a file for that project. That way I can control when I look at emails related to that project outside of my general processing system. So I did look at that at 2 o'clock, and right around 2:30, one of my coworkers came in to have a chat with me. So I put social time, and then I put who it was, and they left around 2:45, and then I continued to do emails related to that project until I cleared them out, and I cleared them out right around 3:10. Sometimes if I have issues narrowing down the exact time that it was, I will look through either my email correspondence or my phone, because usually when I transition from one event to another, there is some sort of evidence of that transition. Especially when I'm done with my day, I usually send a text out to my husband to tell him that I'm on my way, or I do some last minute emails or something like that, and that gives me a record of when I finished for the day. So given how early I was in, I left right around 3:10 from my office. I made it home fairly quickly. I was back home right about the half hour, and at 4 o'clock I went to pick up my son, and I got there right about 10 after, and then we left to pizza. We were at pizza till right around 5 o'clock, and we went to the mall to look at TJ Maxx and the toy store. Then we left right at 6 o'clock for his guitar lessons. We got there at about 8:20. We hung out in the car for a little while, And then at 6:30, we actually went in for the lesson. The lesson lasted till 7 o'clock when we came home. And we got home in about 20 minutes. And then I started filming at about 7:40. So what I've done now is I have identified what projects I've been working on. So right now I know that I worked for 30 minutes on that large project and then another 25 minutes on that project. So for my whole day, I had a 3-hour test and about an hour was taken up by that large project. So I know that about half of my work time was taken up by those 2 tasks. Then I know that it took me an hour and a half to process emails and then another hour to process emails. So we're at 2.5 hours just for processing emails. I took 1 hour for lunch. I had 1 hour of meetings and then another half. So I had an hour and a half of meetings. I had about 15 minutes of socializing and I had in total 20, 15, so I had 35 minutes of commute time in here. So these are the kinds of things that other individuals may kind of color code or group together. So some people might say, I'm going to color code a certain section of my day for work and then a certain section for home, a certain section for sleep, or something of that nature. I like to break it down into the specific tasks that I'm doing at work. So similar to someone who maybe has to bill to a specific project, they might document how much time and energy they spent on a particular project so that they can bill those hours to that company or under that like billing code or something like that. I just get paid one salary, but I do have several different responsibilities. So an alternative way of documenting your day is as follows. One alternative way to document or time log is to use a color coding system. And rather than having the specifics, you can have general categories that you color code. Some people do it very granular and they go into the sub-projects or kind of sub-tasks that they do at work. And some people keep it very general. So for this example, I'm going to take a day last month and I'm going to use a fairly simple color coding system. So I'm going to use gray for sleep, I'm going to use green for time with my husband, pink for time when I'm kind of hanging out on my own, just relaxing at home, yellow for commute time, purple for time at work, and blue for time when we are having family time with my son. So in this day, I woke up at 5:30 and then I went to Starbucks. So this is pretty much time by myself at 5 o'clock. The cool thing about the Hobonichi is that it has this 24-hour timeline here on the left-hand side. So you can use these squares to delineate specific hours. So I woke up at 5:30 and I headed to Starbucks just about 6 o'clock. So I would just color that half box in pink because that's time that I spent by myself. And then I had lots of time commuting because I wasn't in the office until 6:25. So that takes up several steps if I'm actually breaking it down into like kind of the minutia of what I do. Because here I woke up, I went to Starbucks, I left Starbucks, I went to work, I parked, and by the time I actually made it into my office and opened my email, it was 6:30. So that takes up several rows, but it would only take up half a box here of yellow commuting. The next thing I did was work, and I worked all the way until 9:45 when I went to the gym. So that would take me down right past here of work hours. Then I was at the gym from 9:45 till 11:30, so that's time that I spent by myself. Takes me down to right here, 11:30. So I probably had a very long gym session for some reason. Maybe it was leg day. Then after the gym, I got back at 11:30. I edited, I reviewed, I had a meeting, I had another meeting. I was done at the office by 4:10. So I'm going to go ahead and highlight until 4 o'clock. So that's how much time I spent at work. Then I commuted from 4 o'clock down to 5:15. So that's going to be yellow because it's commute time. It's 5:15 actually. So we have another yellow block right there. Then we cooked, we had dinner, we did homework, we went for a bike ride, and then I started working again at 7:30. So all of that was involving my son, so I will color code that as family time all the way until 7:30. So here's a little bit of family time right there. Then at 7:30, it looks like I got back to work for 30 minutes from 7:30 to just about 8 o'clock. So I have a little half box strip of the purple there. Then I watched Grey's Anatomy and I went to bed, and I know that I spent that time with my husband. We generally watch Grey's Anatomy after we put our son to bed. So we went to bed at about 10:30. Okay. So it looks like we spent a good amount of time together. We probably watched like 3 episodes of Grey's Anatomy. And then the rest of the time was sleep. So I can go ahead and color code that all the way down. And I can come back up here and put that in as well. So now I know collectively how many hours of sleep I had. So this is another strategy where you can time track based on different criteria or different groupings of activities. So one other alternative to time tracking that I found very intriguing is one that I tried out several weeks ago. And this is my day in 82 boxes. And it actually is split up into 15-minute increments. I got this idea from another YouTuber, Matt Ragland, and he credited this to Tim Urban's Your Day in 100 Boxes. And it's a way of breaking up your day into these smaller chunks so that you can see how you're spending most of your time. This was kind of an interesting exercise. So in this concept, you have several boxes. Each box is worth 15 minutes of your time. I went across here on this A5 Lloydstrom notebook. So if I went across and I did 4x4 squares, I get 12 15-minute increments across, which corresponds to 3 hours. So here I had from 5 to 6, 6 to 7, 7 to 8, and then this would be 8 to 9, and so on and so forth. So here I can see that I spent just under an hour, so 45 minutes commuting that morning. It was interesting to have the dimension of space documented with this kind of box layout, because in my listing system, even though I can get very, very accurate down to the minute of when I move from one task to another, each task takes up the same amount of room. It takes up one line. So whether I spend 5 minutes or 15 minutes, it's still like 5 minutes or 5 hours. It's still only one line going across. But in this format, if something takes a good period of time, you can see that line going across several boxes, and you have kind of this dimension of how much space it's taking up, how much time it's taking up. I have a meeting heavy job, so sometimes I like to actually capture how much time am I spending doing my job versus meeting about doing my job. So this is an interesting way of documenting your time, and definitely something that I'd like to try again. If you guys would like to see me try it during Plan With Me May, leave the comment down below. I will go ahead and try this out for one of the days in May. That's about it for today, guys. Thank you for letting me share my techniques for time tracking. If you time track, leave a comment down below and let me know how you do that. Until next time, guys, I hope this video brought you some utility and joy.